Hey everyone! Today I have with me Laurence Jackson. He's a friend of mine from college and he works as the line producer's assistant on the Netflix original You and produces SAG short films on the side. However, he spent his first 4 years of his career as an IT auditor for Ernst & Young. Through several career restarts, Laurence is finally working in his dream environment. Welcome to the show, Laurence.
Thank you, Amanda. Thanks for having me.
So how did you get started on this path back in college? How did you imagine your career?
Well, in college, I was very excited about a lot of things, like I think a lot of students are. I loved film. I had started making these little short, silly films at the age of 14 with a little digital camcorder, which I'm sure no one even remembers what that is now. But, you know, I took that eagerness and that excitement into my freshman year, and I thought I was going to double major in business and film, and then of course found out the school did not have a film program. So I decided to start a film making society, and through that club we made our first feature called Hollow. And there was a very special actress in that film.
Oh, stop it. You're bringing me back. Okay, guys, I did one student film. This doesn't mean anything. Nobody needs to go look this up. This is before YouTube days.
Yeah, it's not online, actually. But, you know, back then I thought I'll graduate and somehow I will enter the magical world of film. And I continue to work.
There's like a magical tunnel that takes you there, right?
It's like Narnia, actually. There's like a little wardrobe. It only opens during like certain times of the year. And I missed it. So I had to go the hard route. You know, I studied business in undergrad and continued to do film for all 4 years. But I graduated in the recession. And I had an offer from Ernst & Young. And like, to be really honest, I didn't even know what Ernst & Young was. My friend applied for me. I was the worst business student ever. And I got an interview and I talked about my filmmaking in the interview and they thought that was interesting.
I love how you're talking about how you accidentally stumbled on a very high caliber, exclusive opportunity after graduation.
I know I mean, don't get me wrong. I worked really hard. I was a good student, but I really wasn't focused on the business side of things. I was focused on the film side. But ironically, I think that's what was impressive to the recruiters, is that I had a passion, and that's what got me in the door, not my grades.
Yeah, I think the fact that you said, hey, I'm going to make a feature film. You're a freshman at the University of Maryland. You held auditions for roles, and then you set up, you know, audio guys, video guys. I mean, you made it all happen. I saw it before my eyes. And it wasn't that you just filmed it and just said, oh yeah, guys, like it's going to come one day. Like, you made sure it was edited and you had a deadline, and then you premiered it at our student theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
From start to finish. I mean, now that's a project to share. And I always say, when you speak your passion, doors open. I mean, did you really is that the story you told?
I'm sure I told some version of that story. You know, it was kind of a tricky situation because I had to limit how much I shared with Ernst & Young. They weren't hiring me to be a filmmaker. You know, they were hiring me to be an auditor. So, you know, I think I shared the passion, and they enjoyed those stories, right? It's different than sharing about your business frat. Not to say that, you know, if you're in a business frat, you are going down the wrong road. But I think it really does help to show, like, business is not my entire life.
Well, so talk to me about a day in your life, in your career today, as a line producer assistant at Warner Brothers.
It's been a weird journey getting here. You know, after I worked for Ernst & Young for like 4 years, and I did not enjoy it. I'm gonna be honest. You know, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about business culture. I learned a lot about how you communicate with managers and those below you. I developed a pension and a 401k, which is not anything to sneeze at. I'm very grateful for that.
You built your financial foundation, and I think that that's important. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do.
I feel very blessed by that experience. But it was very obvious to me while I was in it that wasn't the path I wanted to go down. So I went back to grad school. I went to American University in DC and got a master's in producing while continuing to work for Ernst & Young full time.
Wow. How did you handle both of those?
I don't recommend it. I was traveling like Sunday night to Thursday for Ernst & Young, just around the country, not like out of the country, but working like 50 hours a week for them. And then I was in class 8 hours every Saturday.
For those listeners who may not understand what someone does as a consultant for Ernst & Young, can you explain, like you went on site, right, to clients, and what kind of work were you doing for them? You were an auditor. So what did you actually do? I know you didn't enjoy it, but could you just explain it for anyone that may not understand, why it was essential for you to travel and be there?
Of course. And I'm laughing because I'm flashing back to like conversations with my parents who would ask the same thing every year. What exactly do you do? So I as an auditor, you're looking at a company's process. So it might be like a process for procurement, or process for access approval, anything. And you're taking a look to see if there are the right controls in place. And so it's important to be on site because you're interviewing the actual clients. And so I would go to St. Louis or San Francisco or wherever the major headquarters were for these corporations.
And can you share what kind of corporations you got to work for?
I mean, Ernst & Young does a lot of fun clients and a lot of really boring clients.
What were some of the fun ones?
No, I had all the boring ones.
Oh.
No, I did a lot of government clients. I did a lot of healthcare clients. So like Care First, Blue Shield. I got to work on, I think like Facebook for like a brief second. But yeah, most of my clients were like the postal service. So
that's still interesting. Have you seen their commercials lately?
Yeah, they're trying to make a comeback. I appreciate it.
So you probably transferred a lot of those skills that you built at Ernst & Young over to what you're doing now as a line producer's assistant. I'd love to break it down to what your life is like now.
So as a line producer's assistant, my primary responsibilities are coordination between production. And when I say production, I mean all the different departments in production. So we have costumes, we have art, we have set deck, we have construction, we have props, we have casting, we have, it really is a village. And so I help coordinate communication between production and the studio and the network. And I've been working with Warner Brothers for the last 2 years, which has been a great experience. And, I can tell that story later. But right now our network is Netflix. So as you mentioned, I'm working on the show You. And it's fun because I get to have a little bit of a hand in every department. I get to communicate with all of our different department heads and help to make sure that the show continues to stay on track.
What's a typical day in your life? You wake up and you drink your coffee, you do your neti pot routine, then what?
you exposed my neti pot routine.
I'm sorry, was I not allowed to say that?
No, so I wake up, maybe go to the gym, go to the office, and it depends. So right now we're in prep. So right now we have our prep meeting. So we're meeting with different department heads. We're doing a lot of interviews for department heads. So the last several interviews that we've done have been for our director of photography. And we're gearing up for our first episode. So we're having the director meet with the art department and going on location scouts and then doing a show and tell with the studio, and then we'll do it again with Netflix. And so it's a lot of meetings, it's a lot of coordination. I'm excited because for this show, as with I did Pretty Little Liars as well, and this other show called Famous in Love, we have the advantage of our offices being right next to stage, meaning that we can literally just walk to the sound stage and see the construction and see the progress. And when we're filming, we can watch them film. So that's really nice.
Anyone in this podcast audience that's like, I want to be in film, it sounds like you are living the dream. I would love to just kind of can you break it down a little bit even more? What's it like to get to work in a studio with all these people that are also living their dream? I mean, does it feel like you thought it would feel? How does it feel?
It is not as glamorous, I think, as people expect it to be. You know, it's really like any office. And to be honest, I love working on a show where I really enjoy watching the content, but the real significance of my experience lies in the people. And what is my relationship like with the people? And right now I'm really fortunate to have I work with some great people, but that's not always the case. I mean, the film industry is known for enabling a lot of ego. And so it can be tough. You know, I would say like the perks are we get a lot of free food. Yeah, we get catered lunches and we get swag at the end of the season. And, you know, but I'm not really one to, like, I interact with the actors and with the directors, but they're just people. I mean, they really are just people. Some of them are great and some of them are not. And it's, you know, I think the most fun part, though, if you're really into it, if you really, you know, love the process of filmmaking, is seeing something start on a script and then getting to go into the edit bay and looking at the semifinal product.
That's really neat. So like if I go and watch you, is there a scene or a part that you're most proud of that I can pay attention to?
So fun fact, season 1 was filmed in New York. This is now public, so I'm not ruining anything. Season 1 was filmed in New York, and season 2 is being filmed in LA. So I was not on season 1. Season 2 is an entire new crew.
Oh.
So it's, for us, it's almost like a brand new show.
Wow. Does that happen a lot that they have a just completely separate crew for the next season?
It does not happen a lot. It's very rare, but in this case, it follows the books. And so book 1 was set in New York and book 2 is set in LA.
Oh, and then instead of moving an entire group of people, just have an entirely new team.
For a reason, Warner Brothers didn't want to pay for 150 people to move from New York to LA. I don't really understand why, you know? It seems like a no-brainer.
So you mentioned that you went back to grad school. What was this journey like, getting your foot in the door to become a line producer's assistant? What did that look like along the way? I mean, how did you take that risk leaving Ernst & Young, that very stable feeling job, to jump into this new world?
So I was in grad school and I was trying to do a lot of networking. You know, I was in grad school in DC, and I would go to some of these networking events. And at one of these events, I met this guy who's a director and a producer, and he focused on international independent films. And that was like my dream. You know, I literally had just written, I think, my personal mission statement in grad school. And it said, like, I want to work on international feature films. And then this guy pops up.
Everyone listening, I hope your ears just perked up right there. I mean, like, it took going to grad school to write that mission statement, but you guys can write a mission statement today. And when you take that time and write it, these things actually happen, and they seem fateful, but it's because you brought it into your world. You brought the idea, and then you were listening, you were paying attention to that's what you wanted. And that's how you met this person. I mean, I just feel like that's so fateful, but also it makes sense.
Yeah, no, totally. And you know, it took a while. I mean, I think for anyone listening, like, please know this journey can be very slow. And so for me, I got to know this guy, and then he was like, oh, I'm going to bring you on as an intern. And so suddenly I was interning for this company while working full-time for Ernst & Young and while in grad school.
Oh my gosh.
Cool. All right. I'm just not going to have a social life. That's all right. And that's a sacrifice I was willing to make. You know, I made a lot of sacrifices during that time, but I'm grateful for them now. And so from there, he hired me on as director's assistant to work on his feature film in Bosnia, which I was very excited about. And but I can't work in Bosnia and Ernst & Young at the same time. I wasn't that talented, so I officially had to quit my job at Ernst & Young.
Tell me about the object you brought and how it reflects your passion.
Sure. So this object is very special to me, and it might actually be very special to you too, Amanda, because
oh my gosh,
the DVD of my first feature, Hollow. What? For those of you who, like, you know, can't see.
You don't need to zoom in. You don't need to zoom in. I actually feel very honored, though, to be part of that and to be part of your story and to be part of your first feature film.
No, I'm very yeah, it's like a full 360, and it's a lot of fun for me. But this film really does mean a lot to me. This was a very large undertaking for a freshman, and honestly, I look back on this and I don't know what possessed me to go to do this. But I remember being like extremely dedicated and excited about this, and to be able to surround myself with people who were just as excited about it and dedicated. And when we spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, I don't know what my grades looked like that freshman year, but I don't think they were like straight A's. And what happened was my father. So I did the premiere, as you mentioned, and we premiered it at the university's theater, and we had probably like 200 to 300 people come to this premiere, which was crazy. And my father came, of course, as he should. And he, I think for the first time, was like, oh, my son's serious about this. Like he's actually got a tiny bit of talent, and he really wants to make this happen. And so he's a psychologist, and he decided he wants to take this film that he felt like had a message for college students, for freshmen trying to find their way, and show it to other college campuses and give a little like talk afterwards. And so we went to UC Irvine, actually. We flew out to UC Irvine. They actually flew me out there, and they gave me a little stipend, and we showed the film. I don't know if I even told you this, Amanda.
That's so cool. I had no idea.
Yeah. So, and like no one showed up. It's just like my favorite part of the story.
Oh no!
But it was like 5 students showed up. I was like, you guys spent a lot of money to send me to play this for 5 students. But one of the students, they filled out these little forms, and we asked them questions afterwards. And one of the students said, I watched this film and I saw myself in this film, and it made me tear up because I realized I don't know who I am, but I want to figure it out. And that,
wow,
just, like that changed I think that changed my life, because I think that was what I wanted to do with film. And for the first time, I got a little bit of like, it's possible, and so that's why this film means so much to me. And, I continue. I mean, I produce on the side, and I write, and I want to continue making films that I really do feel like make a difference.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that I'm just hearing this now, but that's so cool. I mean, the fact that you, like you said, you made this film from start to finish, and you don't even know how you did it. It's kind of like if you had the knowledge you have now of what goes into making even just an episode of a series, maybe you wouldn't have done it, but it's the not knowing, it's taking that risk and just going for it that gave you the adrenaline to keep going and make it happen. Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I had to think back to my days running the magazine, if I'd known that I would be hand distributing, 5,000 to 20,000 magazines, and what it took to get it printed, I mean, it was the hardest work of my life. So I just think if you already know straight up like that's going to be extremely hard, you might be afraid to do it. So it's the not knowing.
Yeah, no, totally. It's the ignorance, it's the like, the young ambition and the ignorance that get you through. And I just line produced this short film, and we spent probably 50 times the amount on the budget, and I had to go through all these contracts, and I mean, it was officially like a SAG film, so I had to do the contracts, but it's just the amount of the work and chaos and all that went into it compared to my freshman film. It's just very bizarre. Which
was like a no budget film. Was there a budget for that?
Oh yeah, I mean, it was whatever my mom would put on her credit card. That was the budget. But No, I'm kidding. I actually spent a lot of my own money on this film, and I think my mom bought us some snacks from Costco.
Lawrence did not have a $5,000 budget for this film. I mean, it was probably like maybe $100 or a couple $100.
Yeah, we probably spent about $300 to $500 on the film, and yeah, most of that was my hard-earned money as an 18-year-old.
The real cost was the sweat equity, the
Mm-hmm.
time and the sweat and the passion that went into
Mm-hmm.
it. I mean, it's invaluable.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that the theme of my journey has just been perseverance. You know, with this film, it was a lot of perseverance. With my career, it was a lot of perseverance. I think in my bio, I shared that I restarted a few times. And so after, Bosnia was a fantastic experience. I was there for about 2 months, and I got promoted to be a co-producer on that film. And then after that, I worked for the company for a little bit as a director of operations, which was great. And we went to the Cannes Film Market, which coincides with the Cannes Film Festival. And that was an amazing experience, except, we tried to sell our film and realized, like, we don't know what we're doing. We don't have any connections. We don't have an international sales agent. And in that moment of being there in France and like living it up, I was like, I probably need to restart all over again. And, that was really hard. I mean, it was like, okay, I finally kind of got somewhere. But this is not going to lead to the path that I really want to end up.
Well, so, I mean, was that tough to just have that role at 27? I mean, were you able to move up quickly from it?
I will say that I wasn't alone. There are a lot of late 20s and 30-year-olds who work as assistants in Hollywood, which I think is like a misconception. I think that's like I think people assume that everyone's in their like early 20s, and it's not. When I first moved to LA, I joined this program called Act One, and it's a like producer training program. And I remember in one of the seminars, they said, be prepared to be an assistant for 8 years.
Wow.
And I was like, come again? What? I was like, I must have misheard that. I must have heard 8 months. But
well,
no,
so they really try to like train the ego, like with the title. They're like, you may be on the set, but you're still the assistant.
I mean, and it's true. Like, I can't tell you how many people I have met in this industry, whether they work for an agency or for a production or for the studio or for the network, who we basically hop. We hop from one, desk to the next, and we gather a ton of experience. And then you end up in the right place at the right time. People see that you have that experience, because that experience is important and necessary. And then they're willing to give you that next role. But it is a very humbling journey. I worked, I was on the board for the Robert Smith School of Business for University of Maryland, College Park, which is where you and I met.
Go Terps.
Go Terps. And to this day, I still get emails from the Alumni Association there asking if I will speak to college students who are interested in the film industry. And I will say, like, maybe 2 out of the 3 students I talked to, as soon as I explained to them like the hours of a production assistant and the pay and the journey, they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I can do that. That sounds hard."
I mean, well, so I think that that's what it comes back to, which is the message of Find Your Passion Career, is that it's the passion that keeps you going forward. And you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know your bigger vision. You know you've had a taste of making that feature film back in college, and you know that you're on that path to do it again. And I know you will.
Yeah, I'm dedicated. I mean, I know what it's like to work in a field where you make good money and you have stability, and really not enjoy it. I'm honestly, again, very grateful for that experience, because I think it's what has given me the energy to keep pushing and keep going. And my journey has been really fun. Like I've gotten to work on a lot of really fun different shows and different projects, and gotten to meet a lot of great people, have some great bosses, and everyone around me is very supportive and encouraging. And
Well, that's because you make it that way. You've surrounded yourself with those people. Well, so I want to ask you one last question. What advice do you have for college students today?
Persevere. You know, there are going to be so
Yeah.
many challenges that come your way. There are going to be a lot of naysayers. There's going to be a lot of doubt. And none of those things are bad. In some ways, it just means you're on the right path.
Let it fuel the fire.
Let it
Just
be the
add it.
fact.
Just add
But
it to that fire.
I would also say like know the game,
Mm.
because I think so many people go into these passions blindly, and they don't realize that there's already a system in place. And so, for example, for my field, like this whole assistant track is a system that's been in place for years and years and years. And I think so many people are not even aware of it and how to get into it, because it's really hard to get into. It's really about who you know. And so, again, know the game, know your industry.
Well, it sounds
Know,
like you took those classes. Like you moved to LA and you met the people that you needed to meet by joining those classes and
Mhm,
networking. And
mhm.
that's how you ended up in that position.
And that's how you learn the game. Because I did 2 years in grad school, and no one explained to me this path.
You got into
Persevere
this.
and know the game.
Yeah. You got to know the school, the real world school.
Yes.
And that's okay. I mean, you figure it out, and that's okay to not know and figure it out as you go. And you're a perfect example of that. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. Remember, everyone, when you speak your passion, doors open. And I'd like to encourage everyone, after listening to Laurence, to write down their mission, just like Laurence did, because when you write it down, it will materialize. Figure out what it is that you want. And it's okay if you're not there right now. It's okay if you're not making moves to make that happen right now. But once you write it down, you will. And also, I just want to say thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. This is my passion, which is helping college students, helping young professionals. And I hope that I've helped you discover your passion. If you have any questions, reach out, check out the site, Find Your Passion Career. And you can email me any questions at amanda@findyourpassioncareer.com. You can also submit questions for future guests, and I would love to ask them on the podcast. Thanks so much, everyone, and we're signing off. Bye.